at the Sandigan Bayan's 3rd Division due to a new motion that still needs to be resolved. Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson Jay Tariela invited Senator Rodante Marcoleta to join a maritime domain awareness flight to the Kalayaan group of islands. This Valentine's season, a viral story of a nun's vocation is sparking talks on love, sacrifice, and life choices. Now, first in the news, Vice President Sara Duterte is facing impeachment complaints anew, and a third group is expected to file another case today. For the details, we have Mobile Journal Amy Atienza reporting live from the House of Representatives. Amy, tell us what's happening there.
Yes, good morning, Angela Diego. Ngayon ay hinihintay pa natin kung matutuloy nga ba itong third group na sinasabing magfa-file ng impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte at pangungunahan nga ito ni Attorney Virgil Ligutan, kung saan nga, kung maaalala natin, last year ay siya rin yung nag-file ng third impeachment complaint laban kay VP Sara. Meron siyang 4 na grounds na inilagay doon, kabilang na nga yung bribery, betrayal of public trust, graft and corruption, pati na rin yung culpable violation of the Constitution. Ngayon, aabangan natin if may madadagdag dyan dahil yung 2 impeachment complaint na nauna nga i-file dito sa Kamara this year ay sinama yung testimony ni alleged former bagman at aide ni VP Sara na si Ramil Madriaga, kung saan sinasabi niya nga na yung 2022 electoral campaign ni VP Sara ay napondohan ng drug dealers pati na rin ng POGOs. So yan, so far yung aabangan natin at maya-maya ay magsisimula na rin dito sa House of Representatives mismo yung hearing naman ng House Justice Committee para nga sa preparations nila sa committee report na ipapasa nila mamaya sa plenary session tungkol naman sa impeachment ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. Pero so far, medyo payapa pa yung situation, expected 9 a.m. pero hanggang ngayon hindi pa rin natin nakikita yung mga grupo na magpa-file nga dito ngayong araw. Pero abangan natin yan, patuloy natin yung abangan dito mismo sa Kamara.
Amy, sino yung endorsers nito, possibly?
Well, wala pa tayong balita kung sino talaga yung mag-endorse. Pero may nakita rin tayo na online post din parang in partnership or in cooperation with the Attorney Ligutan. Sinasabi nga na once ma-endorse din talaga ito at magtuloy-tuloy nga ito sa Office of the Secretary General, mas ibig sabihin daw niya na mas marami yung mga kongresista na talagang parang nagpo-promote na i-impeach or endorse nga ito, i-impeach yung endorsement i-endorse yung impeachment ni VP Sara para nga magtuloy-tuloy ito sa mga hearing dahil ang kaibahan daw kasi nito dun sa naging impeachment kay PBBM ay napag-usapan naman daw kasi dito sa Kamara yung mga complaints laban nga kay VP Sara, kabilang na dyan yung sa confidential funds na ginamit niya sa OVP, pati na rin sa DepEd. Bukod pa dyan, yung grave threat nga laban sa mga high-ranking officials, kasama si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, yung asawa nito si Liza Marcos, pati na rin si House Speaker Martin Romualdez. So abangan natin kung marami-rami yung magiging endorsers kasi the first impeachment complaint against VP Sara this year ay in-endorse ng Makabayan Bloc Representative. So 3 yan. Habang yung pangalawa naman, 2 yung nag-endorse, which is si Akbayan Party List Representative Percy Sendanya, pati na rin si Mamamayang Liberal Party List Representative Laila de Lima.
Itong nabanggit mo na impeachment complaint filed this year, ito ay na-receive na ng Secretary General and nasaang stage na siya ngayon ng impeachment complaint para lang sa ating mga viewers?
Noong Friday, Angela, nasabihan tayo na na-transmit na ng Office of the Secretary General itong 2 impeachment complaints sa Office of the Speaker. So technically, meron na siyang 10 session days para nga ilagay ito sa order of business. At kung mailagay man ito sa order of business, anytime sa plenary session nga ay magsisimula na din mismo yung pagdinig, pati yung preliminaries kung sufficient informed and in substance din itong mga impeachment complaints laban kay VP Sara. So, kaya this morning din inaasahan nga na mag-file yung pangatlong grupo ay para nga may pagpatuloy at maisama na dun sa preliminaries yung mangyayaring impeachment.
Dito sa possible na pangatlong impeachment complaint that will be filed against Vice President Sara Duterte, ano yung magiging possible laman ng articles of impeachment? Would it be almost the same of the others or merong magkakaiba doon?
Yung last year kasi no, Angela, medyo brief lang din na ipakita itong complaint nga ni Attorney Ligutan. Pero kung i-compare natin, 4 yung grounds niya dito. So ulitin ko yung bribery, graft and corruption, betrayal of public trust, pati yung culpable violation of the Constitution. Halos similar naman ito dun sa dalawang impeachment complaints dahil nga hindi pa rin naman natapos yung usapin nga dun sa confidential funds ni VP Sara na umabot ng 612.5 million, pati na rin yung questionable na paggamit nga ng over 100 million pesos within 11 days. So yan pa rin naman yung patuloy na pag-uusapan dahil nga hindi natuloy yung hearing dito sa Senado, no, yung Senate impeachment trial against VP Sara dahil nga din dun sa unconstitutionality na sinabi ng Supreme Court regarding this impeachment against VP Sara.
Very busy nga ang House of Representatives sa issue ng impeachment complaint. Of course, yung kanila mga committee hearings. And of course, yung ethics complaint against Congressman Kiko Barzaga. Any updates on other complaints under House Committee on Ethics, rather?
Well, nung nagkaroon ng press conference before pa, this was like 2 weeks ago na, no, Angela, sinabi naman ni 4Ps Party List Representative JC Abalos na meron nga ethics complaints din, hindi lamang kay Representative Kiko Barzaga. Pero so far, wala pa tayo naririnig dahil nga yung system din dito ng House Ethics Committee ay closed session siya. So hindi pa natin nakikita kung meron nga ba napapag-usapang ibang ethics complaint naman sa ibang mga kongresista. Pero yun nga, nung Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, no, ay natawaran na rin ng 60-day suspension ulit si Representative Kiko Barzaga without pay nga daw yan. So, ganun ulit ay yung naging parang patakaran nila against Representative Barzaga naman. So, 60 days ulit na hindi natin makikita no, si Barzaga dito mismo sa Kamara.
Alright, thank you for your update. That was our mobile journalist, Amy Atienza. Meanwhile, legal maneuvers have forced another delay in the arraignment of former Senator Bong Revilla and co-accused Juanito Mendoza at the anti-graft court today. The Sandigan Bayan 3rd Division has deferred the plea entering session pending the outcome of a fresh motion submitted by the defense. For the latest, we have mobile journalist Fatima Baduria on the ground. Fatima, tell us what's happening there.
Angela, Diego, nandito ako ngayon sa labas ng Sandigan Bayan at tahimik dito ngayon kumpara kanina noong nagsagawa ng rally ang mga taga-suporta ni dating Senador Bong Revilla sa labas nga ng Sandigan Bayan along Batasan Road kung saan dapat gaganapin ang arraignment ni dating Senator Bong Revilla. At kanina nga yung mga nagrarally ay nanawagan na hindi daw na si Revilla ang ikulong ay dapat si dating DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo dahil siya raw umano ang arkitekto nitong maanumalyang flood control project. At matatandaan nga natin na si Bernardo ang nagdawit kay Revilla sa issue ng mabanggit ni Bernardo sa pagdinig sa Senado ang paghatid niya ng 125 to 150 million pesos in cash na kickback kay Revilla. At kanina ng alas 8 ng umaga ay dumating si Revilla kasama ang iba pang akusado dahil nga dito sa nagaganapin yung arraignment. At sa ngayon ay nag-aabang pa tayo kung ano ba talaga ang magaganap kasi matatandaan natin na nakatakda sana ng January 23 ang arraignment ni Revilla pero naudlot ito dahil sa mga motion na inihain ng kampo ni Revilla na dininay naman ng korte. Kaya ngayon sana dapat matutuloy ang arraignment pero ayan delay nga. At maaalala din natin no, kinakaharap ni Revilla ang kasong malversation of public funds at graft at itong malversation of public funds through falsification of public documents
We are requesting everybody to rise.
Na nakakahalagang 93 million pesos.
So sa ngayon, Fatima, sa ngayon, meron ba tayong alam tungkol sa magiging panibagong date ng arraignment ni former Senator Bong Revilla?
Angela, sa ngayon ay inaabangan pa natin yan dahil nga sana ngayon yun at dapat sa February 13 ay ang preliminary conference na pero dahil nga hindi natuloy itong arraignment ay aabangan pa natin yung mga susunod na schedule, Angela.
Just for clarification lang for our viewers, Fatima, no? Ano ba yung mga motion na inihain ng kampo ni Senator Revilla, former Senator Revilla, na inaantay natin yung magiging tugon ng korte?
Una nga, Angela, ay yung naghain ng motion to quash ang kampo ni Revilla o ang hiling na pagbasura ng kaso dahil hindi raw siya ang may hawak ng pondo para doon sa ghost na flood control project. Pero sagot ng korte dito, sa mismong paglilitis dapat matukoy kung siya nga ba ang accountable officer o yung may hawak ng pondo, kaya dapat daw matuloy ang paglilitis at humiling din ng reinvestigation si Revilla para ibalik ang kaso sa ombudsman dahil sa umunoy kawalan ng due process. Pero sagot ng korte ay nabigyan siya ng pagkakataon para magsumite ng counter affidavit bago isampa ang kaso sa korte, kaya hindi na siya makakahiling pa ng reinvestigation at isa pa, hiniling din ni Revilla na mailipat siya sa PNP Custodial Center sa Camp Crame para raw sa seguridad niya. Pero ayun, ay na-deny din ito ng korte. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng mga motion na inihain nung una ay denied ng korte. Pero ngayon ay aabangan pa natin kung ano pang mangyayari, Angela.
Okay, and sa ngayon, nasaan na si Senator Bong Revilla? Siya ba ay pabalik na sa kanyang kulungan?
Silipin natin, Angela, no? Kasi kanina, bago ako lumabas, nandito pa. Ayan, subukan ko ipakita, no? Ayan. Ayan, nandito kasi yung sinakyan ni Senator Bong Revilla, na makikita nyo, meron din mga kapulisan dito. At ayan yung bus na sinakyan ng mga na galing sa Quezon Jail. So ngayon, hindi pa naman nakaka-elect ito, Angela.
And sa ngayon, yung mga supporters ni former Senator Bong Revilla, are they still there?
Wala na, Angela, kaya naging tahimik na sa labas ng Sandigan Bayan. Mukhang umalis na rin sila, Angela, hindi ko na rin sila nakita dito sa paligid.
Alright, sige, maraming salamat sa iyong oras. That was our mobile journalist, Fatima Paduria. The Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, has submitted its accomplishment report to Malacanang. The details in this report by Mobile Journal, Arles de los Santos.
The Independent Commission for Infrastructure has submitted its accomplishment report to the Office of the President 125 days since its establishment. It details the Commission's accomplishments and activities from the start of its operation on September 15, 2025 to January 18, 2026. All that while its existence in limbo. Within just over 3 months, the ICI successfully submitted 9 referrals to the Office of the Ombudsman covering 65 individuals and the coordination of the referral of another set of 66 individuals to the Department of Justice for the issuance of Immigration Lookout Bulletin orders. That resulted to the indictment of former Senator Bong Revilla and other officials of DPWH Bulacan 1st District Engineering Office, with the case now on trial in Sandigan Bayan. The charges: graft and malversation through falsification of public documents for an alleged ghost flood control project in Pandi, Bulacan. The Commission also listed the number of hearings, witnesses, logging approximately 44 hours of proceedings. That involves 25 notable personalities consisting of 7 senators, 13 members of the House of Representatives, and 5 agency heads, while also conducting a total of 16 site inspections covering multiple regions, to name a few. The Commission has also contributed to the freezing of more than 6,000 bank accounts and the preservation, seizure, or surrender of assets with an estimated total value of 24.7 billion pesos, including motor vehicles, insurance policies, real properties, e-wallet accounts, air assets, and other properties, based on the report of the Anti-Money Laundering Council. The ICI also emphasized that the report was pursued despite being constrained manpower and resources, delivering substantial and measurable results. That is after the resignation of its 2 commissioners, Rosana Fajardo and former DPWH Secretary Babe Singson, leaving its chairperson, Justice Andres Reyes Jr., as its sole member, the reason why it cannot conduct hearings due to lack of quorum. But the bigger question is, what is ICI's destiny? At least for the palace, it is on the hands of the Commission.
Ang ICI daw po ay isang independent body, independent commission. Kung ano po ang magiging desisyon ng ICI, yun po ang maaari maging tugon ng Pangulo. Kung kinakailangan nila ng tulong sa executive, ibibigay po.
But in a statement to the media, ICI Executive Director Brian Kitosaka did not categorically confirm the Commission's future, saying that the accomplishment report is for review and consideration of the President. He also said that the report contains information, documents, and correspondence of confidential nature which are directly related to an ongoing investigation and litigation of cases. Hence, the Commission is not at liberty to disclose the same to the public, that doing so will hamper the successful prosecution of those responsible for the anomalous infrastructure projects. But it can be recalled that an official of the House Infrastructure Committee expressed willingness to resume its probe on the flood control scam only if the ICI will be abolished. But the question remains, has the ICI accomplished its role to look into the country's infrastructure projects for the last 10 to 15 years? Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
Now, the House Justice Committee reconvenes today to finalize its report on the impeachment complaints against President Bongbong Marcos, which will be submitted to the House plenary pending approval by at least 1/3 of all members. Now, last week, the panel dismissed the 2 complaints against the President, ruling that they were insufficient in substance. Let's watch this.
Maraming salamat po. We now proceed to the consideration of the committee report and the resolution dismissing the impeachment complaint. But before we proceed, may we inquire from the committee secretariat if all the members of the Justice Committee were indeed provided a copy of the committee report and the resolution accompanying the same. Committee secretariat, please. As intimated by the committee secretariat, the copy of the committee report, including the accompanying resolutions, were sent to all the members via email. But before we vote on this, for the record, the chair will read Part 4 of the committee report. This is the findings, conclusions, and recommendation. Wherefore, premises considered, the Committee on Justice finds, resolves, and concludes that, number 1, the De Jesus impeachment complaint is sufficient in form but insufficient in substance. And number 2, the Maza et al. Impeachment complaint is sufficient in form but insufficient in substance. It is recommended that this committee report containing the findings and conclusions of the committee in the matter of the impeachment proceeding against President Ferdinand Bongbong R. Marcos Jr. be approved, and the attached resolution dismissing the complaints for impeachment filed by Attorney Andre De Jesus and by Lisa Masa, Teodoro Casino, Renato Reyes Jr., and Attorney Nery Colmenares against President Ferdinand Bongbong R. Marcos Jr. be adopted in a plenary roll call vote pursuant to Section 13 of the Rules of Procedure in Impeachment Proceedings in relation to Article 11, Section 3, Paragraph 3 of the Constitution. February 9, 2026, House of Representatives, Batasan Hills, Quezon City, respectfully submitted, Jervil Luistro, Chairperson. That is for the record. Now the Chair will read the portion of the accompanying resolution, the dispositive portion. Now be it resolved by the House of Representatives to dismiss the impeachment complaints against President Ferdinand Bongbong R. Marcos Jr., filed by Attorney Andre R. De Jesus and by Lisa Masa, Teodoro Casino, Renato Reyes Jr., and Attorney Nery Colmenares and 32 other complainants for being insufficient in substance. Adopted, and then the names and the signatures to be affixed by all the members of the Justice Committee. The Chair is now ready to hear the motion.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
The Honorable Zamora first, and then Honorable Erice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the committee report containing the findings and conclusions of this committee in the matter of the impeachment proceeding against President Ferdinand Bongbong R. Marcos Jr. and adopt the attached resolution dismissing the complaints for impeachment filed by Attorney Andre R. De Jesus and by Lisa Largosa Masa, Teodoro A. Casino, Renato Reyes Jr., Attorney Nery Colmenares et al. Against President Ferdinand Bongbong R. Marcos Jr. in a plenary roll call vote pursuant to Section 13 of the Rules of Procedure in impeachment proceedings in relation to Article 11, Section 3, Paragraph 3 of the Constitution. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Second.
There is a motion. The same has been seconded. Is there any objection?
Yes, Madam Chair, there are objections.
Objection.
We
Madam
object.
Objection.
The same has been objected by the Honorable Ko. We shall proceed to divide the House.
Madam Chair, according to our rules, we may explain our objection.
After we resolve the motion, the members will be given the opportunity to explain.
Madam Chair, this is not an explanation of vote, but rather a debate on the motion. Any motion, according to our rules, is debatable. And
Our
so-
deliberation, the Honorable Tino, was concluded already last February 4. As a matter of fact, we voted already on the insufficiency in substance of both impeachment complaints.
Yes,
This is a motion for the approval of the committee report with the accompanying resolution.
Yes,
we shall
Madam-
proceed
yes,
to vote.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
We are in fact raising objections on the text of the committee report itself, because we feel that it does not properly reflect the discussion and arguments and the position of the endorsers in the complaint. Therefore, we need to explain, kasi ito po ang pagbabatayan ng boto, kapos po, may kulang. Kaya kailangan pong mag-debate.
In the interest of equality, fairness, and justice, the Chair gives the Honorable Tino a period of 2 minutes to explain his objection.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, of course, I only speak of the Masa et al. Complaint, and I would just like to note that in the committee report that is up for approval, there is a discussion starting on, there are no page numbers. The arguments in support of insufficiency in substance are as follows. Then there is a discussion of the 3 parts of the Masa complaint. The first part being with regard to the BBM parametric formula. I would just like to note that this is an incomplete discussion because the narration or the recital of facts in the complaint not only mentions the BBM parametric formula, but together with it, the testimony of Bernardo about how this parametric formula is an integral part of the whole scheme or modus of corruption, which starts from proponents and on to rigged biddings and on to the kickbacks or commitments, which the President approved of. There is also no mention of the act that is being alleged, the act of the President, which is the submission of the NEP. As to the second part regarding unprogrammed appropriations, there is a long discussion here, or starting in paragraph 6, about unprogrammed appropriations being not prohibited by law and not unconstitutional. That is not at all the allegation contained in the complaint. Hindi po kine-question doon yung constitutionality ng unprogrammed appropriations. The recital of facts there is that the President, by law, is solely responsible for authorizing unprogrammed appropriations. That's one point. The second point is that there is also a long recital of facts there that the unprogrammed appropriations approved by the President included thousands of new flood control projects. And it is also recited there that many of these flood control projects went to contractors that are now charged for corruption, including SunWest, Silver Wolves, among others. So, crucial point po yun. Therefore, the recital of facts there is sufficient. There is a presidential act, the authorization of unprogrammed appropriations that went to corruption. Okay. And the last point, there is hardly any discussion, in contrast to the complaint, there is hardly any discussion of the direct role played by the President in ordering insertions, 100 billion worth of insertions, and receiving at least 8 billion in kickbacks. It is cited in the complaint that Yusek Bernardo delivered 8 billion pesos in kickbacks for the President. No, hindi po sinabing to the President, but for the President. Okay, so to conclude, Madam Chair, and thank you for your generosity in providing this time. To conclude, Mr. President, it is very clear that at this stage there is more than sufficient recital of facts in the MASA complaint to support a finding of sufficiency in substance and to ground the claim that the President is guilty of betrayal of public trust. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tino. The Honorable Erice first, and then the Honorable Rodriguez.
In relation to the observations.
With the indulgence of the Honorable Erice, this will be in response to the Honorable Tino. The Honorable Rodriguez is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first statement that the Bernardo were not mentioned, the Bernard testimony, is clear in paragraph 13. It says, while the statements of Yusek Bernardo might corroborate the statements of former Representative Saldico, there is nothing in the statements of Yusek Bernardo which directly links the President to any of the allegations. Therefore, the first ground for correction, when we discuss resolutions or findings of the committee, we only look at the four corners of the resolution, of the committee report, and see whether it is a misappreciation of what has been discussed, or what has been discussed, which is vital and substantial, are not incorporated. So that's the only reason. We cannot go back to a debate on substance. So in the first one, there is already a statement here. So it reflects the true one. There's no directly links the President to any of the allegations of Bernardo in corroboration to the statement of former Congressman Saldico. On the second one, it's very clear, it's stated here on unprogrammed funds. It's here from paragraph 6, 7, and 8. So therefore, clearly, the concern of Congressman Tino has been addressed in this committee. It is here, the findings on substance. And then the third one also, Madam Chair, are also quite stated here. And so therefore, I'm of the opinion that the committee report is reflective of what has transpired that substantially supports this particular committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
The Honorable Erice first. Is this in line again with the explanation of Honorable Tino's objection? Honorable Erice? All right. You may proceed, Honorable Erice.
And then Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That is the ongoing House Justice Panel Committee, no, on the impeachment complaint against President Bongbong
Yeah,
Marcos.
I think they're voting on tapos na yung substance.
Yes.
They're voting on the actual report, kung word at text. Because if you remember, this will be going to plenary.
Yes.
And when it's plenary, may chance na mo overturn to with 1/3. Pero ang babasayan ng mga congressmen on this is the text of or the wording ng committee report. So that's what they're debating on right now.
Right. Hence what Congressman or Congresswoman
Jovel
Jovel Luistro said na the impeachment complaint is not yet done.
Yes.
Kumbaga parang nasa coma stage pa lang.
What is done is the determination of sufficiency in form and substance. But importante kasi yung text sa loob ng committee report because it goes to plenary.
All right. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. Communities in northern Mindanao are beginning to pick up the pieces after the onslaught of Tropical Storm Bashang. Here's the report.
The remains of 4 family members killed in a landslide are now laid in state at a gym in Barangay Agusan, Cagayan de Oro City. The landslide struck their home in Zone 1, Sambulawan, past 10 p.m. Thursday after continuous rains brought by Tropical Storm Bashang. The Lariosa family home was buried under soil. Among those killed were spouses Paul and Rufa, along with their 2 nieces, a teenage girl and an 11-month-old infant. 4 of the couple's children and 2 other nieces survived and are still recovering in the hospital. The father of the teenage victim is overwhelmed with grief.
Ana na ko sa iya, nga wala iko'y pagkulang nga pagatiman sa imo. Pero imo lang kong gibiyaan. Dapat unta magdungan na muban na lang unta ko. Balangga tayong mga bata.
The local government has taken responsibility for the wake and burial expenses of the victims. According to the Cagayan de Oro CDRRMO, more than 200 families have been affected by Tropical Storm Bashang. Meanwhile, Iligan City in Lanao del Norte has placed under a state of calamity due to the severe damage left by the storm. Thousands of residents remain in evacuation centers. Among them is Grace, who recently gave birth.
Napakahirap talaga ng sitwasyon namin ngayon. Walang tubig, walang kuryente. Humihingi kami ng tulong gaya ng mga damit kasi kawawa yung mga bata, tsaka mga gamot.
Residents whose homes remain intact have begun clean-up operations. Many establishments in the city were also affected, either covered in thick mud or blocked by logs swept down from the mountains like what happened to this gasoline station. Some vehicles also remain stranded after being carried by floodwaters.
For the whole region, 25,011 families. And then 78,834 individuals. And they are staying in a total of 103 evacuation centers. That's all throughout the region.
For One News, I'm Bril Montalvo. We are One News.
Let's get the latest from Pag-asa. We have weather specialist Dan Villamil joining us today. Magandang umaga po sa inyo.
Yes po, good morning Angela and Angelo and sa ating mga viewers. So as of now, wala pa naman tayo minomonitor na low pressure area and nananatiling maliit yung chance na magkaroon tayo ng bagyo in the coming days. Ngayon pa man, dahil sa effects ng shear line and amihan, makakaranas pa rin tayo ng mga kaulapan at pag-ulan sa portions ng Visayas at itong eastern section ng Luzon. Particular na dito sa mga areas ng Western Visayas, Eastern Visayas, at mga rehiyon ng Cagayan Valley, Bicol Region, at mga lalawigan ng Nueva Ecija, Bulacan, Aurora, Rizal, Laguna, Quezon, Oriental Mindoro, Marinduque at sa Romblon. Kaya over these areas, especially itong Bicol region at Eastern Visayas, patuloy po tayong maghanda sa mga banta ng flooding or landslides, lalong-lalo na kung tuloy-tuloy yung mga pag-ulan na ating mararanasan. For Metro Manila at nalalabing bahagi ng ating bansa, partly cloudy to cloudy skies ang ating inaasahan. Generally fair weather, pero nandyan pa rin yung mga tsansa ng localized thunderstorms sa nalalabing bahagi ng Visayas and Mindanao at tsansa naman ng light rains ang posibleng maranasan for Metro Manila and the rest of Luzon. Sa atin namang sea condition, as of now, may nakataas po tayong gale warning over the seaboards of Northern Luzon, eastern seaboards ng Central Luzon, eastern seaboards ng Southern Luzon and Visayas. Kaya sa ating mga kababayang mangingisda at may mga maliliit na sasakyang pandagat over these areas, kung maaari ay huwag po muna tayong pamalaot dahil makakaranas pa rin tayo ng maalong karagatan na dulot ng Northeast Monsoon. Angelo?
Okay. Sir Villamir, kasi the last time we talked to a weather specialist, I think last week yun, ang sabi nga daw po, hindi na lalabas ng Philippine Area of Responsibility ang basyang, malulusaw na lang daw ito along the way. Did that happen?
Yes po, on Saturday morning, tuluyan ang nalusaw yung low pressure area na formerly si Basyang over the Sulusi po. Yes po.
Okay. Alright. And sa ngayon po, hanggang kailan natin mararanasan yung mga ganitong klaseng weather natin? May mga pabugso-bugsong pag-ulan.
In terms of rainfall intensity caused by shoreline, hanggang bukas na lamang po papatuloy yung mga pag-ulan over Bicol region and Eastern Visayas. Pero yung cloudiness po possible mag-persist pa rin dito sa eastern sections ng Luzon and Visayas throughout the end of the week. So possible throughout the end of the week ay hihina po ng bahagya yung mga rainfall over the eastern sections of our country.
And ang amihan po, patuloy pa rin itong lumalakas at this point?
Yes po, technically ang amihan nakatagal pa yan up to the last weeks of February or first week of March. So as of now, up until then, asan pa rin po natin yung mababang minimum temperature, especially sa madaling araw.
Well, we are seeing the monitor right now, Sir Villamil, on our naked eye, kung nakikita namin, wala naman pong mga ibang weather system na namomonitor. Ganun po ba yun? Tama po ba yun, sir?
Opo, pero makikita natin itong signature ng convective activity over Bicol region and Eastern Visayas. Yan pa rin po yung effects ng shoreline. So kahit na wala po tayong weather system or weather disturbance na monitor, ito pong mga kababayan natin over Bicol region, Eastern Visayas, patuloy po tayong mag-monitor ng mga localized advisories natin tulad ng heavy rainfall warnings kasi inasan po rin po natin hanggang tomorrow itong mga pag-ulan na dulot ng ating shoreline.
Maraming salamat sa iyong oras, Pag-asa Weather Specialist Dan Villamil. Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, invited Senator Rodante Marcoleta to join a future maritime domain awareness flight to the Kalayaan Group of Island. Kalayaan Island Group, rather. In a post on X, Tariela said he was willing to arrange the flight and personally join the operation. The invitation came after Marcoleta suggested that Philippines could potentially give up the Kalayaan Island Group since some features lie beyond the country's exclusive economic zone or EEZ. Marcoleta later clarified that his remarks were taken out of context, saying he was discussing legal limitations under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. He added that including the Kalayaan Island Group in maps submitted to the United Nations could be interpreted as claiming parts of the high seas. Alright, so ito nga yung pinag-uusapan na
yung saga nila, di ba? If you remember sa atin, nagsimula yung away ni Congressman Senator Marcoleta and si Commodore Tariela.
So, ayun nga, dahil nga daw sinasabi nga dito tungkol nga dun sa Kalayaan Island Group, sinabi ni Senator Marcoleta, i-give up, pero sabi nga niya, it was taken out of context.
Yes, correct.
Diba? Kasi alam natin, yung Kalayaan Island Group is the biggest part of, one of the important parts of the West Philippine Sea.
That's right.
And very important dahil ang daming of course, yung reserved oil reserved doon, and of course, yung mga mangingisda.
Natural resources.
Yes. Okay, sige.
All right. Joining us now is Defense Analyst and Maritime Security Analyst, Chester Cabalsa. Good to have you, Chester. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so what is your reaction to this discourse between Senator Marcoleta and, of course, our spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela?
Well, basically, there were misinterpretations to the context of what we were discussing about. But tingnan natin yung pinakabuod, no? Matatandaan natin nung campaign season, si Senator Marcoleta, at the time, he was running for office, no? In the Senate. Naging controversial din siya because of his pronouncements on the West Philippine Sea. He was like trying to contest if the West Philippine Sea exists, no? At nagsilabasan yung mga sagot natin na talagang it exists because of course, no, we have a legal basis for that. Since 2012, meron tayong legal nomenclature about the West Philippine Sea. It's being studied around the world. And of course, you have the 2016 Arbitral Award that supports the existence of the WPS, no? So it's not imaginary. And secondly, we try to fortify our claims in the West Philippine Sea by legislating new laws, no? Particularly on the Maritime Zones Act and the Archipelagic Sea Lanes, no? This was recently approved. And as you could see, there were coordinates, no? The mere fact that we have an existing municipality inside the Calayan Island group, which is the Pag-asa Island or the Tito Island, that means that there were coordinates and maps are present even before time, no? Meron ka ng historical, legal, and at the same time, political will of having this kind of claims, no? And of course, no, aside from that, araw-araw merong raison tactics na nangyayari dyan sa West Philippine Sea. The mere fact that our Coast Guard and Navy are, of course, doing their best to offer their lives to the Filipino people to protect our national sovereignty and territorial integrity. Ibig sabihin, pinaglalaban natin yung ating karapatan dito, no? And at the same time, most importantly, I think it's being recognized. I believe it is recognized, itong WPS natin, no? It is recognized around the world. So, the question there is, second, no, yung sinasabi na we should give up. I think, I'm quite sure it's not baka may misconception dun sa pagkakasabi. But at the same time, all throughout the years, we've been fighting for the WPS. And I think it's that the best word for us to just give up these claims in the West Philippine Sea.
But I was wondering, Chester, does this type of dispute strengthen or weaken the Philippines' position in the West Philippine Sea? Knowing that in public, nakikita na we don't have one voice in this type of discourse.
I think this happens in a time and age where you have cognitive warfare. And of course, I call it the fragmented globalization where major powers, no, like the US, China, and Russia are saving their own interests. In this part of this world, no, dito sa ating region sa Indo-Pacific, alam natin lumalakas si China at isa sa kanyang interest ay impluwensyahan yung mga middle and small powers like the Philippines, no. And this happens amidst all these hulabalo in our local politics. Kung saan, of course, no, isa sa mga tinitignan natin yung foreign interference, malign interference coming from our neighbors. And at the same time, makikita natin na it shows the level of the kind of our local politics, that it is polarized, it is disintegrated. Ang dapat matutunan natin dito ay may isang boses tayo, unified yung ating boses. Matagal na natin ginagawa ito at I think it shows to the common people, no, the mere fact that the West Philippine Sea has become part of our vocabulary, has become part of our imagined community, has become part of our nation building. That means that it exists. Hayaan natin na itong mga mambabatas natin ay magdebate sila. Ang importante ay naniniwala ang mga Pilipino, ang taong bayan na merong West Philippine Sea, no? I-translate natin ito sa pang-araw-araw na kabuhayan. Ano ba ang implikasyon nito sa ating kabuhayan? Unang-una, napaka-importante ito sa ekonomiya natin. Pangalawa, napakamahalaga para sa soberenya ng Pilipinas. Pangatlo ay ang West Philippine Sea ay siya ang isa sa dahilan kung bakit nagkakaisa tayo. Lumalaban ang mga Pilipino dahil may mga karapatan siya sa kanyang teritoryo at may karapatan siyang gamitin ang mga likas na yaman na nandoon sa West Philippine Sea. So it's very important to us, no, even if these lawmakers are trying to debunk some of the claims of the Filipinos and of the Philippines, nandoon yung kumpiyansa ng mga Pilipino na nakikipaglaban pa rin tayo dahil alam natin na pag-aari natin yung mga likas na yaman na nandoon.
Pero paano naman po yung aside from Filipino officials, may mga social media personalities din, no, who are echoing Beijing's propaganda against the West Philippine Sea. So may mga diskurso na nagsasabi that they should be considered traitors as well. So what do you have to say to that?
Alam niyo po, ang Pilipinas ay dumaan sa malalaking sa mga kasaysayan natin na nangyari ito, no. If you try to notice it during the time when new powers are trying to influence the Philippines, no. Remember, the Philippines has been colonized by superpowers, no. From Spain to the United States to Japan. Ganyan yung nangyayari tuwing nagkakaroon ng transition, no. Alam natin na ang China lumalakas siya, may interest siya doon sa South China Sea at sa Taiwan, kabilang na doon yung West Philippine Sea natin. These are trying times in our history where they try to persuade us, no. Pinapersuade nila ang mga Pilipino dahil lalo na kung aaralin natin yung strategy ng China, no. Doon sa art of war nila, sinasabi nila na hindi na kailangan makipagdigma, mas mahalaga sa kanila yung para makuha ang isang bansa, pag-away-awayin nila ang mga Pilipino, ang mga tao, no. I think that's a psychological warfare, no. That and cognitive dissonance that we're seeing right now, no. Kaya ang gagawin nila, gagamitin nila yung mga vloggers, mga influential people, mga politicians natin para mas madali para sa kanila na mapasok at ma-invade ang Pilipinas, no. So I think we should learn from our history. We should learn from what has been transpired in the past. Ang importante dito na pag-uusapan ito, alam natin ang posisyon ng Pilipinas at ang mas mahalaga ay nagkakaisa ang mga Pilipino, no, na hindi tayo madaling mauto, hindi tayo madaling ma-persuade, no. Ang importante, pinaglalaban natin yung sovereignty natin, mas nagiging patriotic at nationalistic tayo.
Well, finally, Chester, paano, given with what's happening right now, sabi nga nila napaka-importante ng COC or a Code of Conduct, no, sa West Philippine Sea, sa South China Sea in essence, no. So, do you think it's going to happen anytime soon, knowing that, we've been talking about this, they have been discussing about this a decade ago pa?
Okay, it's not the dream COC that we are wishing for, basically. Unang-una, ayaw ni China pang makipag-cooperate para matapos ma-complete yung Code of Conduct na matagal na yan, no. It took time for us to at least to likely achieve the completion of the COC. Pero ang tinitignan natin dito na small victories at small solutions na nakikita natin ay siguro yung mga claimant states, no, doon sa South China Sea na kabilang ang Pilipinas, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei. Kahit sila lang muna, no. I think especially that the Philippines is the chair of ASEAN right now. Let's try to encourage our neighbors, no, to come up with the mini COC. So baka ito yung maging template natin kapag handa na makipag-usap yung China sa atin. And I think gamitin natin yung leverage natin in ASEAN as a leader right now to come up with that mini COC. And later on, hopefully China and Taiwan and some other powers will cooperate with us to come up with the bigger COC.
All right, we'll talk about that mini COC in the next episode. But thank you so much for your time. That was Security Analyst Chester Cabalza. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat.
Don't go away because we're not done yet.
Stay with us.
welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
At this point, let's check the latest over at the Senate. We have mobile journalist Merimon Reyes. Merimon, tell us what's happening there.
Angela, hello, good morning. So far ngayon sa pagsisimula ng pagdinig ng Basic Education Committee, ibinahagi ng DepEd na yung target nila, na nabanggit kasi ni Senator Bam Aquino na chairperson ng committee, for the year 2026, sana 26,000 na classroom ang mapagawa. Pero kasi yung 26,000 na yan, part lang yan over or nung nearly 150,000 classroom shortage throughout the years. Pero ang sabi dito ng DepEd, possible siya, especially ngayon na binubuo na nila yung Memorandum of Agreement kasama ang mga mayor, ang mga governor, ang mga local government units para masiguro na may implement ito. Kasi sa special provision ng 2026 General Appropriations Act, pwede na itong ang DepEd na kasama na ang mga NGO o kaya naman ang LGU, hindi na kailangan required na sa DPWH lang magkakaroon ng kontrata para mapagawa ito. And yung ilan sa mga nakita nila na sa pag-aaral at sa report ng DepEd, over 2,000 na schools yung nagpapacilitate ng multiple shifts as early as 5 a.m. Meron na raw pasok yung iba para lang ma-accommodate yung dami ng mga estudyante sa sobrang kaunting classroom na meron sila. And yung ilan sa mga nakikita nilang problema dito, no site ownership, limited buildable space, maling mga no or incorrect targets, no soil investigation especially for remote areas, procurement issues, or o kaya naman typographical or incorrect information, pati insufficient funds. So itong tinitingnan nila na public-private partnership, mukhang mapapabilis nito yung pag-address nung nearly 150,000 na classroom shortage and makukuha yata for this year yung pag-push na yung 26,000 at the minimum na classroom mapapagawa para hindi na raw maapektuhan yung quality education ng mga bata. Balik sa inyo.
Maraming salamat, mobile journalist Merimon Reyes. In other news, a nun's viral vocation story is sparking fresh discussions on love, sacrifice, and personal calling ahead of Valentine's Day. Mobile journalist Danielle Dayao has the report.
A sister's love story recently went viral online. Some say it's a classic right love at the wrong time, but this Valentine's season is a reminder that love comes in many forms.
Mas mabuti na lang dito ka na kaysa mapunta ka pa sa iba.
Sister Jovi's vocation story has sparked conversations about love, sacrifice, and personal calling. In her speech, she shared how she chose to enter the convent despite being engaged. Her former boyfriend supported her decision and respected her calling. In a message to One News, Sister Jovi hopes for her story to continue inspiring others, encouraging them to choose the higher value. But when love means choosing your own path, how do we know it's real?
It's a word that we always use, but it's really hard to define. For me, love is about sacrificing yourself for the greater good of the other person. Loving is about giving rather than receiving.
According to Dr. Joyce, love is universal. It can come from others or even from oneself, highlighting the importance of self-love and healthy boundaries.
Self-love. It's also important. We need to love and care for ourselves, and that is also sometimes called boundaries. It's not about rejecting others, but it's about protecting yourself.
Inspired by Sister Jovi's story, we asked Filipinos how they navigate love and whether they ever had to choose between loving someone or themselves.
7 years ago, doon nag-start yung relationship namin. Tapos 2 years ago, doon kami nag-break. Naging mas better kasi kami para sa isa't isa. Nung minahal ko yung sarili ko, mas minahal ko din siya.
Kaya naman sigurong mabalance, basta wag kang mawawalan para sa sarili mo.
But what if you're torn between love and personal goals? How should you choose?
Conflict. There are two types of conflict. There's one conflict that is called conflict of morality, and there's one that is about conflict of personality. For example, conflict of morality, na in love mo yung best friend mo na may asawa na. O in love ka naman talaga. Pero that is a conflict of morality. So even though it's love, we need to let go kasi maling klaseng love yan. So when it comes to conflict of personality na love, for example, mahal kita, pero ano ba, i-give up ko ba itong trabaho ko na nandito sa Amerika? Then it's a personal choice.
Valentine's is a time to celebrate love, but it's also a reminder that love isn't just about romance.
It's also about following your heart. Mobile Journal Daniel Diao, we are One News.
Thank you, Daniel Diao, our mobile journalist.
All right, and that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
Kapatid, all sides, all the time.